ready.
Welcome back for part 2 of our interview with Wildlife Resource Commission Officer Brandon Jones. Today we're going to pick up where we left off and cover topics like, are there any mountain lions in North Carolina? What to do when you're approached by a wildlife officer, trends in hunting license sales, support for hunters and hunting clubs, how to become a wildlife officer, and more. All right, so I'm going to go back to kind of what people send you pictures of. So maybe some people send you pictures thinking it's Bigfoot, but this comes up every year. It's the game camera picture. I swear there's mountain lions in North Carolina. I mean, are there any mountain lions in North Carolina that you know
of? Well, we'll just say there's, and definitely kind of, talked with some of the wildlife biologists and, things of that manner. But certainly right now there's no reproducing population in the state, according to wildlife management. Now, it's always possible. When I'm with you, I've got pictures of cats, and whether it be black cats or, mountain lion, color cats, or all kinds of cats. And sometimes it's, looking at it, it's, the angle of it, the shot of it, what's it in comparison of. But to say there's absolutely not a mountain lion here, we just know there's no reproducing population.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it could have been a mountain lion born in captivity and released. People have exotic animals, legally, illegally, so there's no telling, possibly, what it, if it were.
Well, I got to tell you, man, I love putting game cameras out and just seeing what's out there running around and where they're traveling and when they're traveling. And I've got to tell you, right behind my house, there's a big old bobcat back there who looks just like a mountain lion. I mean, it's the prettiest cat in the world, but it's those images that you don't always get, but it's the image that I'll get every once in a while, and you can tell he has a bobtail. And like you said, it's all about perspective. How big is he really? Is it?
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of hard to tell if nothing's beside of it.
I've seen a black house cat. You see it on a trail cam picture, and just kind of how it was and the position. You're like, oh, that's a big cat.
Yeah.
Once you start looking at it, and then you see comparable, the size of other things, maybe around it. So you can kind of narrow that out. But, one thing that we've done, because we definitely have had some pictures that will get passed around, the state of, hey, look at this, mountain lion was up here or whatever else. And a lot of times if you just do a Google search, you might be able to find that same picture somewhere else.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not saying that you do, but it is interesting, because that has happened some as well. But so only thing, again, I can say on that is there's no confirmed sightings of wild mountain lions here.
Okay.
I think in the past 100 years, there's no reproducing population. And,
cool.
Again, and based on some of the wildlife management folks, I think that some of the mountain lions out of the Dakotas have kind of come down, I think, as far as east as Nashville. I think is the furthest east that they have seen them. But so I think that's kind of where we are, I guess, on the mountain lions. But I get pictures every year, and it is interesting as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So, we live in a world where bad things happen, and we see it on the news at night where officers, law enforcement officers approach, in particular, vehicles that are stopped, and the communication seems to break down at some point, and bad things tend to happen afterwards. So, what should people do when they're approached by a wildlife officer? Are there, certain, like when you're getting, if I get pulled over for a traffic ticket, I'm going to make sure my hands are visible on the steering wheel, especially if it's at night or hard to see. Want to make sure the officer feels safe too. But, we're out there hunting. We've got guns and crossbows and things, I mean, what would you like to see people do when you walk up?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great question. And, so, I'll be honest with you, going down the road, and if a police officer gets behind me, it's like, oh my, am I going to speed limit if I got everything right?
Yeah.
Knowing that I am, but it's just, I think that's just human nature.
Yeah.
And I think that's no different than if you're approached by any law enforcement officer, but, especially, the game warden or wildlife officer comes up and, talks to you. So just note, for us, so again, our kind of focus is hunting, fishing, and boating and trapping. And so whether you're on private land or public land, if you're engaged in that activity, we may just come up and we're just there to maybe check license.
Sure.
So it's a little bit different. If a highway patrolman pulls you over, a lot of times it's pulled you over because you did this.
Gotcha.
But for us, we're just coming by, hey, you just got your license on, you're just kind of doing a compliance check.
Okay.
You may have not done anything at all. And I mean, sometimes there may be that, hey, you may be off the track a little bit. Hey, we're just going to talk about this. But a lot of times, and most of the time, it's just a compliance check. Hey, we're just going to come around and, hey, you had any luck? You done any good, whatever else. And hey, we're just going to check your license real quick. And so for most people, it's just, if you see us, I mean, it's just going to be a general conversation with an officer. Hey, how you doing? Doing all right? Just going to come in and just check your fishing license or hunting license or whatever license you may need for that. And it's a really simple encounter. Again, it's just more of a conversation. But if they have a weapon or if they have a gun or a crossbow, there's no need to throw your gun down or anything like that. Just remain like you are. Keep your weapon pointed in the safe direction. And I mean, of course, whatever the demands, or if the officer gives you any demands, of course, just listen to them. But, if we were coming up and checking somebody, say small game hunting in the woods, and if they've got a firearm and it's pointing in the safe direction, there's no need for me to address it. I'm going to let them, as long as it's pointing in the safe direction, and let them keep it. I mean, there's no problem. So just kind of remain like you are. Keep your weapon pointed in the safe direction, and we'll just be looking for you. Look at your license, and that's it.
Well, I think that's a good piece of feedback to people out there listening. Don't assume you're in trouble.
Absolutely
if an officer
it's
walks
a lot
up.
different than any other law enforcement. And I mean, again, it's normal for me. When I see them, or if I see a law enforcement officer behind me, I'm like, oh, what I do, what am I doing? Make sure. But again, it's just a compliance check. We just want to make sure you got everything you need, and then also too, there may be something that we can help you with. I think that's what a lot of times, I think a lot of our officers are really good at conversation, and once by the time it ends, we're hoping to, we can give you our contact information. That way, use us as a resource. So I think when you see an officer, because again. And it's crazy. Some people we check, we say, hey, I ain't been checked in 30 years. And then some people, I've been checked 5 times in the last hour. It's just one extreme to the other. But I would say take that opportunity to definitely, if you need their contact information or if you have a question. I mean, we're here as a resource, for the sportsmen and for the, ultimately the citizens of North Carolina. But I mean, we're here to help. And so if you have a question, or, if you don't understand something, or if we can check on something for you, or, hey, if you just want your number, or want our number, I mean, that's what we're here for.
Well,
that kind of goes – I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that kind of leads me to another question, talking about, you're here for the citizens of North Carolina, in our case, North Carolina, but wherever you're living, your state guys are there
Absolutely.
for you too. But so, do you have any trends that you're seeing? I had somebody tell me the other day, I think maybe 6% of the citizens in North Carolina buy hunting licenses now. Is that true? Do you see trends? Are hunting licenses purchases up or down, about the same?
Well, I don't have any exact numbers on that, but I think just in the world that we live today, I think definitely hunting license. I don't think they're on the uprise.
Okay.
I think that's something that we want to make sure to kind of keep the heritage, because for us, as a wildlife commission as a whole, from every division, I mean, we want people to enjoy the outdoors. We want them to hunt and fish and boat and trap, and a lot of non-recreational users are starting, or non-traditional users are starting to come on board. People hiking and bird watching, and so we want people to engage, in these activities. But so as far as exact numbers on license, I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure
That's okay. I just think, the general consensus is it's probably down some, and there's just
Yep,
a ton of, competition for kids, attention now. I mean,
absolutely. You know,
sports played year round now. It's just there's all kinds of things for them to get into that are competitive to going out and hunting. So it's no shock to me that they're down.
yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing. You bring up a good thing there, just talking about the youth. I mean, the youth is that's just really in anything that you do, but youth is absolutely the future. So if we have got to keep that in mind as sportsmen, and to keep this heritage going, and for people to, enjoy, it's kind of cliche, but enjoy the, wildlife for future generations.
Hmm.
We have to get them involved. It could be something as simple as, starting out going to a hunter education course or a
Well,
butter safety education course in person.
Brandon,
Take them in person.
I'm so happy you're bringing this up because I really wanted to ask you, what kinds of things do you guys do for like kids in particular, but also I think about young people in the sport, but it might not necessarily be young age. It might be an adult that's maybe never hunted before.
Yep.
But
No,
so they're young.
absolutely.
They're young to the sport. So what do you guys offer, like local hunting clubs? We have some really good hunting clubs in North Carolina that may not know that you guys are open to coming out and putting on a safety course. Or I mean, is that even possible? Or what do you guys offer?
Yeah, no. So the commission offers a lot of different things, and then, some of them, some people are well aware of them, and some of them are not. Again, I would just go to our website, ncwildlife.org,
Mm-hmm.
go to hunting, and so we provide a couple of different courses. Of course, our biggest ones are probably going to be the hunter education, the butter education on the enforcement officer side.
Mm-hmm.
But so just an example for, well, I guess I kind of start with the kind of the youth stuff as well. So we have basically the hunter education or the shooting skills,
Mm-hmm.
or the shooting sports. So a lot of times this is run through the high school or the middle school, but basically, it's the shooting team. So they shoot 22s and shotguns, bow and arrow, and do an orienteering course. And this is at a district level, and then to a state level, and they even have it on a national level. So that's something, you or your kids may be, at a school where they have a shooting team, and that may be
Mm-hmm.
something to get them involved with that. But looking at like hunting clubs. So in the
Mm-hmm.
past, I know we've won, a lot of times, when they have a meeting or whatever else, we'll go, one, just to introduce ourselves, and two, we may just kind of do a law review. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is what's new this year. Kind of give them anything new from the commission or anything that they may need, and then also gives them opportunity to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then in addition, if you had a hunting club, then a hunting club may have a facility or have somewhere where we can do a hunter education course. So we could do a
Right.
hunter education course just for the members, or if it's something to where they wanted to open up to the public, we could do a course there. So
Cool.
again, partnership in what we do. We definitely could not do this alone, kind of the conservation as a whole, but so working with, local hunting clubs, private hunting clubs, just community members, that's a vital role for us.
Mm-hmm.
We honestly, for, looking from a wildlife officer standpoint, we're a little over 200 within the state, and then the commission,
Mm-hmm.
is probably 650, 700 employees serving the state. So we can, we have to have relationships to be able to keep this going. But so I think the biggest thing, and I think this kind of goes on all different levels. One, if you're interested in trying to get more information about the game lands or getting more information about just local laws, or you may have something to report, or you're looking at what education events you may have,
Mm-hmm.
is getting basically your county's wildlife officers' contact information.
Okay.
And we have that information online. Basically, you can, again, ncwildlife.org, you can go to contacts and basically pull up the county and pull up your officer there in the county.
Mm-hmm.
And because if I go to another state and if I were to need something, wildlife related, I'm probably going to call the officer in that county.
Well, that's great advice. So I've got kind of a two-part question for the next part, and one is, have you ever or what's the most dangerous animal you've ever encountered out there while you've been out on your adventures? And another one, just talking about animals, have you ever seen something in North Carolina that wasn't supposed to be here? You know, you mentioned that people sometimes maybe bring in exotic pets and somehow they are released, but have you ever seen something that's not supposed to be here?
Yeah, no, definitely a good point there. Probably looking at the most dangerous. I'll just be honest with you. Probably the biggest thing is probably going to be sort of like rattlesnakes.
Mm-hmm.
So especially being in the Uwharrie, I know this is looking at dangerous wilds, but I definitely have more of a respect for rattlesnakes, especially kind of looking in the Uwharries, because one thing we definitely have some people that come around and they may collect rattlesnakes or poach them,
Mm-hmm.
Which of course is illegal, but probably the biggest thing coming across is we've actually kind of went and kind of looked for rattlesnakes, kind of in the Uwharries, kind of see where some of them are located.
Mm-hmm.
And just try to see, especially almost getting this time of the year, for people collecting them. But being up close and personal and seeing them definitely gives you a more respect of them. But probably other than sitting on a bear bait site, at the coast with bears coming in, eating on a bait site, and you're on one side of the tree and he's on the other side, But I mean, he does his thing and I do my thing, and it usually worked out. But probably bears and rattlesnakes, but nothing ever bad, I guess, has ever happened. So
good. Well, that's good.
And then probably the strangest thing is a tegu, which is almost like an iguana type, like reptile lizard style. So I got a call in Montgomery County a few years ago, and a lady called and says, "I've got this lizard in my chicken coop, and it's eating eggs in my chicken coop." And so Montgomery County is, very rural, very country county. And sure enough, she ended up having a tegu, basically almost like an iguana type, reptile in her chicken coop. And she had no idea, lived in the country, had no idea where it came from. And so it's just like, where did it come from? And so we still don't know. But, I mean, of course, those are exotic species that are very invasive and illegal to possess here.
Mm-hmm.
But that was one that kind of scratched your head. It's kind of like, how did that happen?
Well, talking about things that are out of the ordinary, I know you've probably covered a lot of ground. You've certainly been all over this state. Did you ever come across anything that was just kind of cool, you thought was really kind of cool? Maybe an old, I don't know, home site, an old burial ground? Did you find jewelry or hidden treasure or anything? I don't know. You're out there and about. Did you ever come across anything just kind of cool?
The only thing probably for me is what I'm kind of interested in, kind of just, kind of old home places. But it's just kind of coming across those, so we have come across a couple, burial grounds to where you could definitely tell they were burial sites, but you just, couldn't read anything. Just old, just rocks marking gravestones and everything else, just kind of in the middle of nowhere. And so some of that's definitely interesting. One, and you go back in there and it's just, 60, 75-year-old hardwoods, and, you're just there, and you just kind of makes you kind of hit the pause button for a second, and just want to appreciate, just the area, but two, just very interesting to see, knowing somebody's been there before. When you think you're out there by yourself.
I just think that
the old home places and the old cemeteries, those are things that, especially walking in the woods and coming across, you just stumble across them.
I just think that those are cool spots to stumble across. I know some people probably get all spooked out about them, but, I just think it's fascinating history here in our state. But I wanted to end with a question that I had some of my hunting friends ask me about. In our part of the country, maybe, or maybe even just in our part of the state, it seems like deer hunters and small game hunters don't get along sometimes, because they're both in competition for hunting lands, and I happen to be both. So I deer hunt and love to go coon hunting and rabbit hunting, squirrel hunting, whatever you want to do. So I like to hunt all kinds of things. But I see their points. I see a lot of guys, especially I run around with a lot of rabbit hunters now and coon hunters, And even myself, my experience has been where I go approach a landowner, or even people that have land leased, hunting clubs, and the answer is, yeah, Sam, you can come hunt, but you have to wait until deer season's over. And so for us, I kind of think about our deer season, and I know it's probably different throughout the country, but it's kind of like early September to maybe right around January 2nd is kind of our deer season. And in there is like, I guess there's an archery and maybe a black powder or something, and then a rifle season. And then after that, from and at the same time, maybe I should back up, and at the same time, I'm looking at maybe some of our small game seasons, and they're like mid-October to the end of February. So even though they can hunt in mid-October, the competition for finding places to hunt is really tight, and so a lot of those guys have to wait until January to really have access to some of the hunting land. So they're only really getting to hunt a couple of months. So do you hear people complain about that? Or, I know we one of the first things we talked about was game lands as an opportunity. So maybe that's an option for some people, but game lands maybe aren't next door for some folks. Yep. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll be honest with you, so I coon hunted up to probably a couple years ago, and have dealt with that myself, trying to, find a good place to, hunt. Like I said, I really enjoy listening to the dog, work and run, but trying to find a place to hunt during, like I said, October, through December on private land is a challenge. And so a lot of people say, don't want to run my deer off and everything else. And a lot of us that do small game hunt know, most of the time that those dogs ain't gonna bother that deer at all.
Oh no, I've given out so many studies. You're gonna walk right past a deer. We've all been standing in the woods, or especially coon hunting. You sit there and you hear deer all around you running around. The dog's down there a tree. So so I dealt with this on a personal note and dealt with this on a professional note as well. So one thing. Yes, it is reality. Because deer hunting is by far probably the biggest thing now. People hunt for, so it involves a lot of money. People spend a lot of time and money invested on property and stands and feed, but there's a lot of times, they'll say, I've got this and that, but you can come hunt after deer season. But the only thing that I would recommend, one, is trying to talk to those individuals, trying to definitely don't stop reaching out to them. You never know where one may allow you to do it. But a majority of them, they are kind of stuck on, I don't want you to run my deer off. So if that were to happen, I know some guys that hunt down on the Sand Hills game lands, and they squirrel hunt with dogs. They fox squirrel hunt, and they'll go down, in October, because they have a lot of land that they can hunt after deer season, but during that time they'll go down to Sand Hills game lands, which is thousands of acres, and they'll utilize the game lands during that time. But they're kind of in the same boat. They're probably a good hour and a half away, so a lot of times their time is limited to just a Saturday or taking a day during the week to go down. Gotcha.
And you're looking like, when I was in Lincoln County, unfortunately right now, like Lincoln County area, Gaston, Catawba, there's just not a lot of game lands.
Yeah, it's not an option really for us close by.
Yep. And so that's definitely a challenge that we see. And definitely the commission, we're trying to do the best we can to continue to buy game lands or buy land or put it in the game lands program across the state. But
Brandon,
really, don't stop trying.
No, I don't think we'll stop trying, and I hear you. And I used to keep a copy of a study. I think Clemson University did it down South Carolina years ago, where they put and you probably know about this. You've probably seen it or read it, but they actually put tracking devices on deer and coon hunted in the same spots. And I'll make a very long story short. By the next morning, even if your hounds went in there and treed right in the middle of the deer, those deer were back in their home spots by the next morning, in time for the deer hunters to be there. It had no effect on it. And they did a really nice job, so I'd encourage folks to, and I know that's not the only study, but but that was one I used to give a lot of those out to deer hunters that would get a little territorial. But let me ask you this. So, and I know we got to wrap up, so this is kind of my last question. Do you ever see it changing? I mean, I look at that, how long that deer season is. Do you think they'll ever shorten it? Because I understand maybe the reason initially for the different seasons were to give like people wanting to do like primitive type hunting an opportunity before you let guys come in with high powered rifles. But I'm telling you, the primitive tools I've seen people with their bows and their black powder, they've
come a long way.
They're not so primitive. I mean, do we really need a deer season that long?
Yeah, now this here, I definitely would have to defer, to our biologists and our wildlife management, staff. I mean, on just looking at it, first glance, I don't see it. I think the biggest thing looking at it is probably just from population. The deer population of the state is, seems to be doing pretty well. So I really don't know. I'm not aware of any talks or anything of it, shortening, within the next year or so. I know I'm not aware of anything like that. But I would definitely just have to defer to our wildlife management folks. So they definitely, are ingrained very deeply into that and the reasons and the dates and, kind of the scientific reasons behind it. But, I wouldn't even want to guess.
Sure, I get it.
But it is. It is a long. You like to say you start, the second week of September roughly, and you go through January 1st. That's pretty good time.
If you can't get your limit in that time, buddy, you're doing something wrong in our part of the state. Those jokers are running everywhere.
Yes, sir.
Well, listen, I don't want to tie you up anymore this evening, but I really appreciate you taking so much time and being so thoughtful in your answers. And I know I peppered you with all kinds of craziness, and some of them were kind of out there. But I really love the information you've shared, and I hope people find it interesting. But is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you? Is there anything you want to talk about? One of the things that I picked up on when you were kind of giving a little background on yourself was that maybe you also are looking for future officers, maybe recruiting for the Wildlife Commission. So is that something you're active in?
Absolutely. So anybody interested or possibly want more information or anything I can do to kind of help. So basically, I would recommend going to just ncwildlifeofficerjobs.com and basically, or maybe .org, I'm not sure. But basically, NC Wildlife Officer Jobs, and that's our careers page. And that has my contact information on there, and you can kind of go and look. We've got some recruitment videos and everything else, but we're definitely looking for, just good people that want to make this a career.
And do you have jobs open now?
So we're going through the hiring process right now. So we normally have one basic academy a year, and we normally accept applications mid-May through the end of June if we are having a school for the upcoming year. So yes, I would just highly recommend just going to, again, just the ncwildlife.org page, and you can find our careers page, or just go to NC Wildlife Officers. I think it's .org, and you can find more information on that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much again. I really appreciate your time and just really educate not only me, but hopefully folks out there that had some of the same kinds of questions.
I appreciate you having me on, and like I said, for the people listening, hey, the Wildlife Commission as a whole, whether it be from the biologists or the wildlife officers, we are definitely here to help in any way possible. So we're here as a resource for you, and just don't be hesitant to call us or contact us. We have a dispatch that's 24/7, 365. Someone is always up here. So anything we can do to help, that's what we're here for.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Brandon. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for listening to Buff in the Rough, and remember to like and subscribe if you want to be notified when we have new content available. Please send comments and suggestions to buffintherough@gmail.com. Join us next time to learn more about what it takes to have a successful hunting club.